Maps are supposed to tell us the truth. They show us where we are, where we're going, and how to get there. They're symbols of clarity, precision, objectivity. But that's a modern illusion, because for most of history, maps weren't made to tell the truth. They were made to tell a story. And sometimes, that story was a lie. Before Google Earth and GPS satellites, maps were instruments of power. Whoever made the map controlled the narrative. Think about it. To map something is to claim knowledge over it. To draw borders is to define who rules what. To name a mountain or a river is to erase what it used to be called and rewrite it in your own language. Cartography, especially during the Age of Empire, wasn't a neutral science. It was a tool of domination. Take the 15th to 19th centuries. As European powers expanded across Africa, Asia, and the Americas, explorers weren't just charting coastlines. They were drawing lines through other people's homelands, naming places they didn't understand, claiming lands they had never set foot in. And the maps they created back in London, Paris, or Lisbon weren't meant to be accurate. They were meant to justify conquest. Let's talk about map projections, the method used to turn our spherical Earth into a flat image. The most famous is the Mercator projection, created in 1569. It became standard in Western navigation and later education. But it's horribly inaccurate. Mercator exaggerates the size of landmasses near the poles, making Greenland look bigger than Africa, when in reality, Africa is 14 times larger. It makes Europe and North America look dominant and central, literally placing the West at the top and middle of the world. Why did it catch on? Because it flattered imperial powers. Even today, the Mercator is burned into our brains, shaping how we think about the world's geography and power balance. This isn't just about aesthetics, it's about subconscious messaging. Europe is big, Africa is small. The global south is peripheral. Other projections, like the Gall-Peters, which shows area more accurately, have been proposed to counter this, but they've never quite unseated the original, because old myths tend to die hard. Medieval and early Renaissance maps were often filled with sea monsters, krakens, serpents, and dragons curling along coastlines. This wasn't just decoration. These illustrations served a psychological purpose. They marked the unknown as terrifying, as dangerous and wild. Maps labeled "Here be dragons" weren't just warnings, they were ideological boundaries. Beyond this line, you're not in civilization, you're in chaos. That mindset shaped how explorers and colonizers viewed the world. Even the idea of an empty land, terra nullius, was a mapping invention. Cartographers left vast regions blank, as if uninhabited, ignoring the fact that indigenous peoples had lived there for millennia. A blank map in this context was a colonial permission slip. If it's not on the map, it's up for grabs. Maps don't just reflect borders, they create them. Think of the Sykes-Picot Agreement, a secret 1916 deal where Britain and France carved up the Middle East as the Ottoman Empire collapsed. The borders they drew were artificial, splitting ethnic and tribal groups, forcing rivals into new states. But those arbitrary lines became real, embedded in maps, legitimized by institutions, and forced by armies. The same happened across Africa during the Berlin Conference. With no African leaders present, European powers drew straight-line borders across the continent, lines that still shape modern politics, often fueling instability. And maps helped justify these actions with a language of order and civility. They replaced native place names with European ones, erased complexity in favor of clean geometry. To the colonizer, maps were instruments of civilization. To the colonized, they were instruments of control. Map distortion didn't end with decolonization. During the Cold War, the West and the Soviet Union both used maps to exaggerate threats. American textbooks depicted the USSR as looming, vast, and blood red. Soviet maps did the same with NATO countries, painting them as encroaching aggressors. Even city subway maps, like London's or New York's, use distorted geometry to simplify reality. Stations appear equidistant when they're not. Lines run straight when the tracks curve wildly underground. These are practical distortions, but they still shape how people perceive space, danger, and identity. You might think digital maps are neutral now, but even today, maps lie, or at least shift depending on who's looking. Google Maps, for instance, shows different borders in different countries. If you're in India, Kashmir appears entirely Indian. If you're in Pakistan, it doesn't. In China, Taiwan is labeled differently than in the US. This isn't just about accuracy, it's about compliance. Tech companies bowing to government demands to keep access in authoritarian markets. So even in 2025, maps remain political instruments. They don't just show the world, they show the world as someone wants you to see it. Maps shape how we understand the world, and for centuries they've shaped who we think belongs where, who has power, and who does not. But maps are not the territory, they're reflections, opinions, and arguments frozen in ink. At Forever Green, we believe in telling the stories that matter. Subscribe for more in-depth explorations of the systems that shape our planet, and join our exclusive YouTube community to support original science content, access early videos, and join a conversation that goes deeper than the surface. So, the next time you look at a map, ask yourself, who drew this? Who was it for? And what truth might it be hiding?